Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rebecca Lee. I'm a freelance journalist. I write for European tech publication 4i magazine. And as your lovely presenter just said, I've written for nearly every newspaper in Ireland. But today is not about me. It's about my two lovely panelists. And the theme of today's panel is building a company with design at its core. And I'm joined by Jonathan Legg, co-founder and CEO of Open, and Anuj Srivastava, co-founder and CEO of Livspace. Guys, you're very welcome to the stage. Now, first of all, can you tell us a bit about your backgrounds? How did you come to found your companies? I'll start with Anuj.
Hi. Thank you for having me here. Anuj, I'm the founder CEO of Livspace. Most recently spent close to a decade working for Google, really. So largely inspired by the ability for technology and design to inspire billions of people. So I think when I actually started my company, the idea was to create an experience such that hundreds and thousands of homeowners can actually get a beautiful experience. So inspired by that journey, I built Livspace, which is today the largest home interiors and renovation platform. We operate out of Asia and looking to actually extend to multiple Western markets as well. We founded the company in 2016. And work out of 100 cities in the regions, and the experience is intended for consumers who want to renovate their homes and not look at a general contractor. That's what we do.
Great, Jonathan.
Yeah, our beginnings are different. My background is furniture design, so like quite old school in that sense. My materials were timber and fiberglass and steel, like very much the materials of the last century. Built a little e-commerce business with my brother called Makers and Brothers. Grew that out of our garden shed, had a small team, looked to leverage what was really working, realized corporate gifting, like unintentionally had become a big part of our business, over 35% of our revenue, and leaned into those conversations. And clients at the time were like Facebook, Google, Airbnb. That at first didn't get the traction we expected, and serendipity played its part. We experienced Airbnb's gifting firsthand. We saw how generous they are trying to be and how wrong it was going for them. We wrote to them and said, we can help you do this better. And they wrote back saying, you're in a tiny little garden shed, you definitely can't. But I was pretty persistent and stuck with it. And we eventually got invited into an RFP. We pitched for 6 months and ultimately came away with a contract to be Airbnb's global gifting partner. And that opened the doors to us to corporate gifting. We've got an amazing roster of clients ever since, with the likes of Etsy and Intercom, Peloton, Spotify, Atlassian. Like, some amazing brands have come to us to help us show they care and help them build communities. So,
hey,
yeah.
Two great stories there. So starting off in a garden shed, very impressive, and growing the company so fast and swiftly. Let's talk about customer experience. Customer experience is a huge part of design. How do you create a seamless customer experience? Anuj, we'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, look, customer experience is a notion of the ability for design and design experiences to build trust, the ability to get to the information fastest, and the ability for design-oriented platforms to actually unify the experience of tracking of goods, information, and money. So those principles essentially built the web. So when we look at an omni-channel experience like what Livspace created, the idea was the ability for us to use design and content and UX and the right physical spaces to be able to allow homeowners to get to the information they need the fastest in the most trustworthy manner. But at the same time, design sellers the thousands of design sellers who are actually earning an income on our platform, the ability for them to actually get to that solution the fastest in the richest way. Those are the principles upon which the company was built.
Great. Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar for us. I think our starting point is always kind of why and what value are we looking to create, and starting with the person and the community, so like the individual and the context. So like having that micro situation and the macro, and like taking a very holistic view at it. And for Open, like there's a digital and a very real world physical experience in the back of any gifting moment. So we have to think through that entire play, from the engagement to the gift landing on the doorstep and the anticipation you're building. So like for us, it always comes back to prioritizing the human experience. And like really what we're looking to do is just make it easy and joyful. And coming from e-commerce to corporate gifting, it was very much about just reconnecting the dots in a way that made sense for that context. And because, I mean, what we're doing is as old as sin. Like, we're doing nothing new. Gifting has been around for millennia, and people do it to say thank you or show they care. And but corporate culture kind of sucked the soul out of its own gifting and has made it thoughtless, and it's all just managed in an Excel document. But every company is gifting. That is the reality. And so our mission is to fix gifting and make it less wasteful and make it joyful and make it be what it can be.
Now, you spoke about connecting the dots. I love that analogy, by the way. Steve Jobs really made that famous. But you were saying before we came on stage that it was actually a designer who came up with that expression.
I guess the way, you can go right back to the 1920s and Macaulay Nagy and the founding of the Bauhaus, and his whole thinking on design was, design is it's an attitude, it's an approach, it's a way of solving problems, it's a way you look at the world, and I think we're very much agreed on that. And the Eames in California then kind of talked a lot about connecting dots, and Steve Jobs paraphrased Charles Eames when he was coming up with that. But throughout that, it all comes back to being very holistic in how you think about design. It's not just about the surface, it's always about going deeper.
Okay, well, let's talk about growing and scaling your companies, because again, two great stories. How does good design come into play when you look at growing companies as fast as you guys have done? Anuj, if you want to start.
Yeah, look, design is all about the ability for consumers, whatever your notion of consumers, to actually consume an experience. So for me, this is the best designed product. Like, more than 1 billion people actually consume this. And my frustration actually while I was building my company was the fact that home design and interiors and renovation was actually a purview of the few. So in a sense, that became the inspiration. So when you look at growth intentions and scaling the company, you're really trying to create experiences that allow everybody who can afford it to actually experience what you want to put out to them, not just a few people. So that notion and that principle is vital to scaling and growing companies like ours. And I think he talked about the
Jonathan?
same, right? So.
Yeah, for me, it's about fixing things. I love the idea of fixing stuff, and bringing that culture of care and repair into a company. And when you're talking about design, it's not about just the product team and what they're building digitally. It's also about how we build our org and the team we're putting around us and the values and that culture. So yeah, it's coming back to people and that idea of fixing problems. And because every day, in my role, there's so many problems I'm seeing and so many fires that are burning, and you're trying to prioritize, reprioritize. That it can all come back to design thinking and as a way of operating and dealing with that problem solving.
Okay, well, let's talk about marketing strategy and design. Anuj, in your opinion, how does good design inform your marketing strategy?
Oh my goodness, everything. So for us, there are two sort of principles of marketing. There are two things that you're trying to attract. So at all points in time, you're trying to attract the attention early of homeowners who might be interested in your value proposition. That's one. You're also trying to attract the attention of designers who might actually want to join your marketplace, to earn a living. So the notion of design actually is the ability for our platform to inspire them, the audience, and to inform them such that they can make the best choice. Be it physical, be it digital, be it the combination of the two. At all points in time, you're trying to make sure that the audience that you're after is actually able to make a decision about your platform the fastest. That's what it's all about. So marketing and design is very deeply interconnected in our company.
And Jonathan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, very similarly, I feel like we've just done a big product release with Open On Demand. In that case, we've created a really interesting proposition and a piece of value that we want people to come in and make use of. And strategically with marketing, then right now for us, it's very much about no more kind of creation of value, but connecting the value, bringing that onboarding experience, that kind of getting the message out there. It's the design work right now is about connecting to value as opposed to just creating value.
Great. Now let's talk about design and return on investment. Is it possible to go overboard with expensive design choices? I think, Jonathan, we'll start with you on this one.
It's a common pain we share.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, 100%. Because somebody might say, well, it's just it's the you just need to think it through properly, but like that takes time. Yeah, like with design, it's like if you're doing it properly, you're not just focusing down in and just refining something. You're exploring options, so you need to give that time. And when you do, and then you go to refine stuff, then you're doing it properly. But it's giving it the right time. If you jump in too quickly, you're just dealing with the surface and you're not seeing everything that's going below. Like if you're building a whole new website and you get really excited by just the the UX, the website, but you're not thinking about like how it's built and will it connect with my product and will our marketing and CS software and that stack integrate with it properly, and are we getting the right data and is it optimized? Like there's so much happening below that that's all related to design. Yeah, so it's working with your engineering team and your creative team and your marketing. Like it's about bringing everybody together and having a collaborative culture in your company that allows those conversations shake themselves out in a constructive manner.
And what are your thoughts, Anuj? I could see you smiling over there.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like it's a common pain, and I think it's probably a common pain across many entrepreneurial journeys. If you think that you're over-designing, you probably are, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's kind of funny. And we've actually seen us over-design physical spaces and user interfaces and products that we've actually put out. And unfortunately, the issue with more complex experiences wherein design plays an integral role is that cost of a wrong decision is high. You might invest too much time, too much effort, too many resources. So the ability for you to test something very early with a relatively modest prototype is extremely important before you invest a whole lot of energy in actually creating whatever your formats of designs are. I mean, that's the discipline that I think we've learned really after failing many number of times.
And balancing out the different voices, because like you can build an onboarding experience that's perfectly optimized for what the business thinks it needs, but you're going to create way too much friction probably for that customer coming in. And like the main thing is you want somebody in there using your product, and then you want to learn through that relationship, as opposed to optimizing for exactly the data the business wants to gather in those first few moments. Yeah, get somebody in using your product before anything else.
I think the motto of the call should be, don't over-design.
Yeah.
Don't over-design. I love it. Well, that actually brings me to my next question. How important do you guys think good design is in the products and services that you provide? So, Jonathan, you're very much focused around corporate gifting. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's everything, but for us, I'm going to say the same thing over and again. Like it's about prioritizing the human experience. Like if you're thinking about corporate gifting, like it's a pretty wasteful industry historically. Like that's why we want to fix it, because there's so much unwanted cheap merch just floating around that ends up in landfill that nobody really wants. So when like a big thing for when we kind of won our first contract and suddenly had Airbnb as our client, it was like, how do we rethink this? How do we make their gifting more sustainable, but like just responsible is a good starting point. So it was about offering choice, so somebody's getting a gift that they actually want. Because when it comes to gifting, like ultimately it's the thought that counts. Like people, it's about making connections and making that person. It's very emotive. So it's not necessarily about landing a gift on their doorstep. It's about showing them that you'd like to gift them, and it's about giving them the choice, even the choice to say, do you know what, I appreciate you thinking of me, but I don't want that gift, and I'd prefer you donate that to a worthy cause. And so our technology allows for all of that. And I think if we hadn't, brought it back to first principles and really thought it through, we would just be sending more crap out the door.
Anuj, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, honestly, design is everything, but I'll sort of break down in mathematical calculus, right? So, I'm an engineer, I'm a Google product manager, so that's how I thought about life. My customer experience essentially lasts over, you could argue, 3 to 6 months, whether somebody's buying a simple kitchen or somebody's actually doing an extensive remodel or getting an old home renovated. These are complex projects, right? So if you break these things down, the customer touch points spans multiple channels, from a mobile app to a website to a designer interface to a design experience centers. And these are all stitched on the same technological infrastructure, but the consumer is making decisions which are information laden, to creating a shopping cart and trusting it, to actually looking at the picture and getting inspired, believing that somebody can actually deliver that picture to them, and ultimately trusting the products and services that were delivered at your home. Now, each of these interfaces have some promise that the design is delivering, right? So for us, the ability for design, be it a user interface or a physical design experience center or the product and service that's well designed, it's just so integral to the overall experience that that's the culture that we live by, right? So if you can't do each of these touch points well, and the design is not able to communicate the promise that you intended at that point in time to the consumer, unfortunately, my entire customer experience goes for a toss. So at every point in time, you're testing again and again and again, such that that experience comes out beautifully and predictably and in a rich, transparent manner.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about inflation. It's obviously on the tip of everyone's tongues. How has inflation impacted the design industry? Anuj, this question's for you, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm sort of realistic optimistic about some, realistic pessimistic about the others. So in my specific case, the experience is ultimately the consumption is physical. It's not just virtual, right? So while the goods and products and services that are delivered at home is a combination of the cost of goods that you acquire, whether it's a material or a piece of labor or a subcontractor and so forth and so on. If you see across the planet, there is inflationary pressure upwards. So things are by definition becoming more expensive. Two things become important. Are homes important to people? Yes, today more than yesterday, absolutely. People want to have bigger spaces. People want to consume more trusted, material and services into their homes. So while there is positive pressure for our industry in terms of what the consumer wants today, I would think that there's some degree of pessimism coming in on the broader industry because of the fact that the COGS keeps going up. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the only thing that we can actually do as platforms is to make sure that we are providing the most trusted experience in the space. The more trustworthy an experience you can provide, you can actually ride ahead of inflationary pressure. That's what we believe.
And Jonathan, let's talk about inflation and corporate gifting. How has inflation impacted your sector?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has an impact, but I think we're quite lucky that we have a very horizontal proposition that's relevant to multiple verticals, from the sales cycle to marketing to employee engagement. And we also have this overarching thinking around gifting that fundamentally it's all about loyalty and building relationships and connections. And when companies are being hit by these economic headwinds and things are tougher, it's not about perpetual new, you're battening down and you're nurturing the communities you do have around you. You're nurturing the customers you do have. You want to keep them and you want to ultimately kind of grow their engagement with your business. And the same with your employees. You might be reducing headcount, but you still need to build and maintain those relationships with the employees that are staying with you. And yeah, we've seen a big shift away from sales gifting and a mass, if you'd asked me a year ago, I wouldn't have thought over 45% of our revenue is coming from employee gifting and nurturing the global teams for the likes of Intercom and Etsy and Airbnb. So yeah, it's moved around.
Okay, great. And I suppose one last question for you both, as we're running out of time, unfortunately. What are the short, medium, and long-term plans for both your companies? I think Anuj will kick it off with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, two preambles, yeah? So, and I kind of harp on the word trust many times over. So we are the most trusted platform for home owners when they look for home improvement. So naturally extending and providing them more trusted experiences in the home improvement space would be something that we will heavily invest on. And my value chain is very complex. So we just acquired a company, I think early in the year. We are looking to acquire more in time to come. We've just allocated about $120 million just to look for, market consolidation. So if any of you out here have companies that could be of interest to me in terms of an inorganic process, yeah, I'm all ears, man. So.
Jonathan?
Yeah, short and near. We closed our Series A just 4 months ago. So
congratulations.
Yeah, good. Timing was everything in that situation. And we just launched a whole new product with On-Dep and On Demand. So that's a massive focus for us now. In particular, we've created this product, and now, like I said, it's about connecting and bringing everybody in to see how wonderful it is and how easy it is just to gift as you go and not to have to make massive commitments, which our enterprise customers are doing. And long term, yeah, we're very much building out I like to think about it as an ecosystem that we're building out. Like I said, we have a very horizontal proposition in different verticals we're operating in, and there's integrations that are needed in all those spaces. And it's not just the integrations that power the gifting, it's also the integrations that where you receive the gift. Like if you're an employee, you should be like gifted in Slack, and it should be triggered by a gift box emoji. Like there's a lot of fun still to be had, and we're only really getting started in that space. So yeah, a whole ecosystem is to be built around gifting, which I'm pretty excited about.
So it's going to be a very interesting year ahead, and also in the years to follow for the design industry, it seems. I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. I hope everyone enjoyed our panel discussion. Anuj Srivastava, I've mastered the name, co-founder and CEO of Livspace, and Jonathan Legg, CEO and co-founder of And Open. Thank you both for your time, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of Web Summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks, guys.